Hey, come on, dog. That's the what's in that salad? Let's see. Got spinach, avocado, banana peppers. What else I got in there? I got pickles in there, cilantro. So I got it's it's pretty good. One more bite. One more bite. One more bite. One more bite. Mm. Now that was good. Man. So as you can see, I'm going to give my opinion about a question that was posed. You know, it's pertaining to tarot. You know, tarot readers. You know, a little bit of gold. You know, can't go wrong with gold. You know, I got the silver. Got the silver going. So, you know, a day ago, there was a question that was posed on one of my videos that I posted about the prophecy, the warning of future events, foretell versus foretell, and how it relates to prophets. And you know, there was people that commented, any feedback, whether it's good or bad feedback, is appreciated, and you acknowledge everybody that gives you feedback, you know, because it's not for you, it's actually for them. Any information that you put out is not for you. It's not to make yourself, you know, look any type of way or knowledgeable, but it's to share information as you being amongst people, and you know that you have to be in a civilization and you have to be civil with each other. Then you share information, and you don't give information or want to charge people for your information. You know, that's why, you know, I don't understand how there's people with members only. That's them. You know, that's them. Then you have what you call poor righteous teachers. You know, they're poor because they give their information away free, and you know, sometimes they really don't get anything in return. So that's where I'm at. You know, you don't seek anything in return, not even a comment. You don't even, expect a comment in return for your information, but you put it out. You know, you're willing. You have a willfulness to put out information, and you know, hopefully it reaches a people, and it has some sort of impact or effect on their life, positive effect on their life, or they can use it to positively affect somebody else. So that's some of the reasons why you want to put this information out, is because it's it's a tool. Knowledge is a tool that you can use, to keep you from certain traps. This is why, I don't. I'm gonna talk about that as we get into this. But as you see, it says, my question for you is about tarot card readers. They talk about source all the time, but claim source or the universe is relaying the message, but don't recognize God as being the almighty creator. I feel like it is witchcraft. Would you elaborate this in your opinion? And I replied, righteous. I got my opinion about tarot readers, So this is what we're about to get into right now, my opinion about tarot readers. Tarot itself, it's actually a practice, just like any other practice. You practice Buddha, you practice tarot, you could practice Islam, you could practice, it's a way to have a certain center of your not just your belief, but something that is ritualistic and something that's centered around a certain study. Or it could be a form of a science. It's a science to it. And let's get into it. So, me personally, my opinion about tarot card readers, especially the ones that's on YouTube, is there is more so entertaining. It's more so entertaining because there's a lot of people that give readings, and they give you entertaining readings. Not that you're into tarot, or that you're into any particular religion for that matter, but they give you their readings, especially black tarot readers. They give you readings, and when they give them to you, they're giving it to you from a gossip perspective, from a perspective that they have access to a certain information or a certain source of information. It's not just that it's intuitive, because when you're dealing with tarot and tarot reading, it's centered around a particular reader's intuition. But with them, it seems as if they have a certain inside source of information. This is where you have them relaying it to source. But then there's some that actually believe in, God. There's tarot card readers that believe in God, and they speak about God. That might even say scriptures. That even say Jesus. That even say, or whatever. But there's some that actually refer back to the Bible and Christ. So that's not let's see where it's at. That's right here, where it says they don't recognize God as being the almighty creator. So they at times they would refer to God as the creator of all things, and they would still go on to give you a reading. But me, honestly, honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna tell a lie. And I'm not gonna, especially publicly. I couldn't lie publicly, but if it's something small to somebody that don't need to know certain things, you could withhold some information, or you can withhold certain things from them. But on a public scale where you have to put information out, I believe that everybody that's somebody on YouTube is connected to a cult, a cult, a fraternity, a sorority, or something. If there's somebody on this platform, you're connected to a particular fraternity, and that fraternity is rooted and connected with a lot of other things. And when you understand how information is elicited, illegally elicited from people, especially when you're talking about the gang stalking program and um, other programs, whether it's the Central Intelligence Agents, whoever it is, but however information is being um, taken from you, and these would be the results of that information, because there's it's all intertwined, if you ask me, with gang stalking and the tarot and um, all sorts of other things on this platform. I could be wrong, but that's what my intuition tells me. That they are actually getting information about certain people, and relaying that information from an intuitive perspective. And you would say, hey, I resonate with that, because some way you was prompted to these particular channels, whether it was something that just showed up in front of you on your device, or on another social platform. It was, you were seeing it, and then it lured you into receiving it. But a lot of things that the tarot readers are, that they say, is relating to certain situations that I encounter personally, especially when it's amongst family and friends, and a social circle that you're in. And they can pinpoint a lot of stuff that's going on, detail by detail, and for me, that's the reason why I say that they are actually a part of the targeted individual program, because a lot of my accounts have been hacked, and I've seen emails that was connected to my account that I didn't connect them to there. So they have access to all of your information, whether they're watching your screen itself, or the people that are getting the information from off of all of your contacts, your text messages, your emails, and all sorts of stuff that you do online. Whether it's watch certain movies, whether it's you play certain games, whatever it is, they're able to have access to that information, and then put it into a form where they're just showing you cards while they're reading your story to you. It's like, let's say Menace to Society, for instance. We all know that movie. If especially if you grew up in certain areas, you had to watch that movie at some point in time. You would use those characters without putting a name on them, and just give all the situations surrounding them. You know, from Cain dropping out of school and he should leave. He should have went to Atlanta with um, Jada Pinkett. He should have went to Atlanta, but he's going to get in trouble, and something's going to happen. Certain things like that. But you're reading it. You're reading the story to a T without actually saying who it actually is. But other people will relate to that because they're associated with the story. But that's just me, what I believe about what tarot readers are. And is it witchcraft? Witchcraft is dealing with deception. So if anything is deceptive, if you're telling people that you are getting some information from another source, but you're actually getting it from this source, that's deception. Whether you're dealing with the church, whoever. If you're saying that you're actually with God, but you're actually serving money, that's a form of deception. These people, they tend to worship money, and money is like, a god. So if that's what they believe God is, then you can't say that they're wrong for attributing that to God, to a God, But as far as me, I don't have any kind of I don't associate with it. I don't associate with it. This is just stuff that you see that when you come on YouTube, and as a person that creates content as well, you are into a certain loop as being a person that makes content as well. But if you look at whether it's the prophetic word, whether it's the tarot readers, they all say the same exact thing. They speak to chosen ones. They speak as chosen ones. They speak to chosen ones. So, me, I think that it's all the same exact code, and that code is, pertaining to or centered around the targeting program. And when you're targeting a person, you're able to track and monitor everything that they do. And if you track and monitor everything that they do, you can create videos about it, from another perspective, as opposed to using the people's names. You can actually create stories around the information that you're gathering about a particular people. So that's one of the things that I see, and that's just being honest. You don't, that's a hustle for them. It's just, to me, it's just a hustle for them. Are they witchcraft? Is it witchcraft? Is it God? Is it, I don't know what they believe in. Only thing I know is that a lot of these things are jobs for people. They're just playing a part. For me, that's just for me. Because I don't see them go from the Bible, from Jesus to tarot, to Jesus to tarot. I've seen that happen on numerous accounts. To relay certain messages or stories. That's what I've seen. So, and that's my opinion about it. They are in cahoots or all in some fashion associated with a fraternity, a sorority, or a cult. And these cults, they get information from people that they're watching and that they monitor, and then they relay that information back to other people. So that's just me. I could be wrong, but let's find out what is tarot. What is tarot? History, uses, and the modern meaning. This was on August 20th. I'm not sure what year. Let's see what year. It really doesn't give you a year, doesn't specify. So, tarot cards are a popular tool in many spiritual and holistic routines. But what exactly are they, and how can you use them? In this article, we'll explore the meaning and history of tarot and how to use tarot cards to receive guidance and clarity. So, you know, tarot cards is a form of giving guidance and clarity, to clarity to certain situations, in certain situations where you may be baffled about who's doing. This is the reason why, like I said, it's entertaining, because if they're getting information from people and then they're giving it back to you, you're actually getting information about the information that they know. So it's a form of receiving guidance and clarity about certain situations. So that's what tarot is. So it doesn't say anything about it being related to witchcraft, or not just yet. What is tarot? Tarot is a form of guidance that uses a deck of 78 cards to gain insight into the past, present, and future. Each card has a unique meaning and interpretation, and the reader uses these cards to answer questions or provide guidance on various aspects of life. Tarot has been used for centuries and remains a popular form of guidance today. Many people are drawn to tarot because it can provide insight on various topics, including love, career, and personal growth. While some may view tarot as a form of fortune telling, it is important to note that tarot readings are not meant to predict the future, but to provide guidance and insight into the present moment. As with all holistic practices, you must trust your intuition above all else. Each person may interpret tarot cards differently, which is the beauty of tarot card readings. So, in a lot of readings, you'll hear the same exact thing being said, or seen. This card is referring to this, or this card is referring to that, and by them having the same theme with a reading, it only allows you to know that this is they do have a source of where this information comes from. Whether is it a divine source? I don't know. I wouldn't believe that. But then the power is in the belief. If you don't believe it comes from a divine source, then you won't believe it. But if they believe it does, then that's them. Or maybe they could have some sort of connection to a certain server, and that server is giving them this information, which to them may be a divine source. So you can't say that it's up to the belief is up to the particular people or the person in particular that's receiving or that's actually paying attention to it. So if you don't believe that they're connected, or they have a certain ability to interact with a source that's divine and get some sort of insight from the divine, and it's pertaining to you in particular, like you relate to this. Who's the story for? I don't know who the story is for, but this is for you. And it's no different than people that says, I don't know who needs to hear this, but God said this, and it's no different. It's no different. So you can't downplay one without downplaying the other one. As if just because they have the Bible or God on their tongue, that their source of information is accurate and the other people's source of information is wrong. Because what I learned is that, people that actually say they're with God are really not with God. This is what I learned. That's what I learned in this reality. They tend to mock God and just use God as that name, that's not God's name, is not God. It's just what we know that to be is God. you know but they use that in authoritative speech. Like, once it comes from God, then this no is authority behind it. And that's a form of what you want to call witchcraft, which would be a deceptive means. Is a deceptive practice in order to make your understanding understood. So you would have to throw that in there in order for people um, to yield to whatever it is that you're saying. So, um, yeah, let's finish reading this. As with holistic practices, you must trust your intuition above all else. Each person may interpret tarot cards differently, which is the beauty of tarot card reading. Historical origins of tarot. The origins of tarot are somewhat shrouded in mystery, but most scholars agree that the cards were likely created in northern Italy, which, Italy is dealing with is dealing with Rome, during the 15th century. The earliest known tarot decks were used for playing games similar to modern day bridge or poker. It was in the 18th century that tarot began to be used for guidance and fortune telling. So, the earliest known tarot decks were used for playing games similar to modern day bridge or poker. It was in the 18th century that tarot began to be used for guidance and fortune telling. Some historians believe that ancient Egyptian, Jewish, and Christian mystical traditions influenced the images on the tarot cards. Others suggest that the images were inspired by the Italian Renaissance and its fascination with the occult and esoteric knowledge. There are many theories about where the name tarot comes from. Some say it is derived from the Arabic word tar, which means path or way, while others believe it comes from the Italian word tarocchi, which was used to describe a type of playing card. Despite its origin, tarot has become a popular tool for personal growth and insight. Whether you are a seasoned reader or just starting, tarot can be a powerful practice for self-discovery and understanding. A Beginner's Guide to Tarot. If you're new to tarot, it can seem overwhelming at first, but with some knowledge and practice, you can start reading tarot cards for yourself and others. Here are a few tips to help you get started. Understanding the basics. Tarot is a deck of 78 cards. Each card has a unique image and meaning that can be interpreted in various ways. The deck is divided into two sections: the major arcana and the minor arcana. The major arcana consists of 22 cards representing major life events and themes. The minor arcana comprises 56 cards divided into four suits: wands, cups, swords, and pentacles. Each suit represents a different element and aspect of life. So as they study tarot, like it's a science that you actually have to study and know which card is representing what. And you have to know the wands, the cups, the swords, the pentacles. And these are some of the things that as a reader they have to know. You have to know these things. So are they in a school of study? Are they in a how are they able to learn what these suits are and then be able to set up pages and have readings on a daily basis? So they actually have to study this. Like I said, it's actually a science that that once you find interest in it and you start investing time in it, you can become good at it. you know but for the most part, it's all relating to your intuition. Do you know people that you're reading for specifically? So how are you able to give a general reading and it resonate with others? So this is one of the things that I was saying about they may be getting their information from you know from a certain a certain source, you know and that source may be just siphoning information from people and putting that people out to the onlookers. And if the onlooker can relate to it, then that's just the way that it is given to them. But then you have some that just like to watch or see it because they have an infatuation with knowledge, not knowledge, but with like drama and hearing about certain things, and or they may just be in a paranoid state and think that everything is about them. But for me, I know that it's a certain thing behind something else, and it's all about information and gathering information. And and that's one of the things that I have experienced with. I see these people online, and they don't seem like like they're individualists. It's like they're all a part of something. You know, they don't seem like they're individual. They don't have any individuality in their and on their platform. Their page is like their page. Their page is like their page. His page is like her page. Her page is like his page. That's just me. Not to you're not throwing any kind of shade on anybody, or you just being as honest as you could possibly be. I mean, like, yo, I've seen this a dozen times. I've heard that a dozen times. And yeah. So basically, it's a science that they have to learn in order for them to be able to read cards. And they gave you how tarot was used in the 15th century, where it was like a regular game, uh, 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 playing game like bridge and poker. That was back in the 15th century. Then they had the 18th century, where tarot began to be used as guidance and fortune telling. So, getting started. To begin reading tarot, you'll need to choose a deck that resonates with you. Many different types of decks are available, each with its unique artwork and symbolism. You can also use a guidebook or online resources to help you interpret the cards. From classic choices such as the Rider-Waite Tarot deck to new interpretations, choosing a deck that feels right for you is important. Once you have your deck, take some time to familiarize yourself with the cards and their meaning. You can start by pulling a card daily and reflecting on its meaning and how it applies to your life. So, This is a tip on how to familiarize yourself with the cards, and you're using how it applies that particular card. You're attributing it to how it applies to your life, so this is one of the tips that they give you for when you start reading tarot. you know Performing a reading. When you're ready to perform a reading, start by shuffling the deck and focusing your question or intention. You can do a simple 3-card spread to become familiar with the cards. At first, as you lay out the cards, pay attention to the images and their meanings. You can also use your intuition and any insights you receive to interpret the cards. Don't worry if you need clarification on the meanings. At first, you'll become more familiar with each card's symbolism with time and repetition. So time and repetition is what gives you a clarity or clarification on the meaning. After a time, after you repetitively do it, or perform a reading, you become more familiar with what the card is and what's the meaning of the card and how the card is supposed to be interpreted. So these are some of the things that, as a beginner who might be discouraged at reading, they tell you, don't worry if you need clarification on the meanings. At first, you'll become more familiar with each card's symbolism with time and repetition. So that's, affirmation for them. Just give it a little bit of time. You'll get it. So here we have it. It's best to begin by conducting readings for yourself before doing them for others. When you feel comfortable reading cards for your own purposes, consider sharing your skills. See? Sharing your skills. When you feel comfortable reading cards for your own purposes, consider sharing your skills, sharing them. So here's the use on how to use tarot cards. Once you're familiar with the basic meanings of tarot cards, you can use them for guidance and personal growth. Here's how to use tarot cards. Set the mood. Find a quiet space to focus and relax. Light a candle or some incense to create a calming atmosphere. Shuffle the cards. Shuffle the deck thoroughly, focusing your questions or intention. You can shuffle the card in any way you like. Draw your cards. Draw your cards from the deck. You feel ready, you can draw as many cards as you like, but most readings involve 3 to 5 cards. Interpret the card. Look at each card and interpret its meaning in the context of your question or intention. You can use the guidebook that comes with the deck, or you can rely on your intuition to guide you. See? You can use the guidebook that comes with the deck, or you can rely on your intuition to guide you. So it's about interpreting the card. Look at each card and interpret its meaning in the context of your question or intuition. You can use the guidebook that comes with the deck, or you can rely on your intuition to guide you. So that's where we wanted to get to, the interpretation of the cards. When we see the cards and what the cards mean, or when a person shows you the card and then they tell you what the card means, how are they able to interpret the card as a person still in somebody's home or people um, just trying to cause you harm or try to do something to you in any kind of way. But that's what we are kind of puzzled about. Where are these stories coming from? From the cards themselves. How are you able to interpret these cards and use them to fit somebody's story that what I mean, using your intuition, and it's always the same thing over and over and over again. It's always the same reading. Like I said, for me, you're in a loop of people that's around you. Maybe because you have some sort of association with this, and they say that in it, they may say chosen one in it, then they also say chosen one in it. So now you're confronted, or you're seeing certain things, and then the title catches your attention, and then you say, "Oh, that title sounds kind of familiar. Let me see what's going on." Bloop. And now you're in a certain loop of watching just repetitively over and over and over and over again. Like I said, these people have a platform, and they're not giving the information out freely. They're getting certain kickbacks for providing that information. Like I said, it's not them paying them. It's somebody paying them. But like I said, I believe that they're associated with yeah. But that's just me. So reflecting on the reading after you've interpreted the cards, take some time to reflect on the reading. Think about how the cards relate to your question or into intention, and what insights they may offer. You can keep a tarot journal to keep track of your readings. Remember that tarot readings are not a substitute for professional advice or guidance. Use them as a tool for self-reflection and personal growth. With practice, you'll develop your unique style of reading and interpretation. So, they have what you call, with practice, developing your own unique style of reading and interpretation. So, this is what I try to say, that there's really no individuality when it comes to reading. There's really no individuality. Their page is like their page, and their page is like their page, and discuss what they talk about, and discuss what they talk about, and discuss what they talk about, and talk about what they talk about. So that's you seeing what you see. So interpreting tarot card meaning. Interpreting the meaning of tarot cards can be challenging and requires a thorough understanding of the symbolism and meaning of each card. Here are a few tips that help you interpret tarot card meanings. Pay attention to the imagery. The imagery on tarot cards is rich with symbolism and meaning. Pay attention to the details in the images, including colors, objects, and people. Each element in the image can provide clues to the card's meaning. Don't worry if you pull cards such as Death or the Hangman. Even though these cards sound ominous, they aren't negative. They often represent transformation or new perspectives. So that's one of the ways that they interpret certain cards when they see the Death card or the Hanged Man. Even though these cards sound ominous, they aren't negative. They often represent transformation or new perspective. So consider the card's position. The card's position in a tarot spread can provide insight into its meaning. Cards in different positions can have different meanings and can interact with each other to create a more nuanced interpretation. An upright position often symbolizes a traditional interpretation of the tarot card, whereas a reversed position might represent the opposite message. Use your intuition. While it's important to have a solid understanding of the symbolism and meaning of each card, it's also important to trust your intuition when interpreting tarot cards. Your intuition can help you pick up on subtle nuances and provide a more accurate interpretation. Look for patterns. When interpreting a tarot spread, look for patterns and connections between the cards. These patterns can provide insight into the overall message of the spread and can help you interpret individual cards more accurately. Do the tarot cards all represent a certain theme? Are the same numbers reoccurring? What pattern is present across all cards? Keep an open mind when interpreting your reading. By following these tips, you can develop a deeper understanding of the meaning of tarot cards and become a more confident and knowledgeable reader. The role of intuition in tarot reading. When it comes to tarot reading, intuition plays a crucial role in interpreting the cards and providing insight into the current situation. A querent is someone who asks a question or makes inquiries, particularly in the context of seeking guidance or information, such as from an astrologer or a fortune teller, or in a legal context as a plaintiff or a complaint. Here's a more detailed explanation. Inquiring and seeking information. So a querent origin query, inquire. So a querent is to inquire, is a person that seeks information. So that's the thing, is the intuition. The role of intuition in tarot reading. When it comes to tarot reading, intuition plays a crucial role in interpreting the cards and providing insight into the current situation. Intuition is the ability to understand something instinctively without needing conscious reasoning. So they have to, or they claim to have the power to understand something instinctively without needing conscious reasoning. So that's the key right there. That's the juicy nectar. That's one of the juicy nectars. The juicy nectar. It is a skill that can be developed through practice and experience. In tarot reading, intuition is used to interpret the symbols and meanings of the card. It allows the reader to go beyond the traditional meanings of the card and provide a more personalized reading for the querent. In tarot reading, the intuition Intuition is the, it's the inner knowing. It's the inner knowing. The intuition is related to the gut feeling, and you might want to go and give you a better, you know. Here we go again. The ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning. We shall allow our intuition to guide us. Instinct, intuitiveness, sixth sense, divination, clairvoyance, a thing that one knows or considers likely from instinctive feeling rather than conscious reasoning. Plural noun, intuition, your insights and intuition as a native speaker or are positively sought. So that's intuition. In tarot reading, intuition is used to interpret the symbols and meanings of the cards. It allows the reader to go beyond the traditional meanings of the cards and provide a more personalized reading for the querent. So, the intuition is what they use to form their readings about. If they say a person, they'll say you in particular. If it's about the people that are offending a particular reader, they would call that the karmics. The karmic people that. Or if they're relaying it to a group of people, they call it the collective. This could be for any and all of y'all. Everybody that's listening, this could be for all of y'all. But it's the intuition that they use to generalize that. Whether it's to a particular person, whether they individualize it and give it to a person or to themselves, or they give it to a general audience. They're using what they call intuition and instinct. It is important to trust your instincts and let go of any preconceived notions or biases. So you have to trust your instincts and let go of any preconceived notion or biases. You must be open to receive a message from the cards and be willing to interpret them in a way that resonates. Practicing regularly and being patient with yourself as you develop your skill is also essential. So, again, tarot reading is basically just a skill that can be learned, and, based in once you acquire that skill, it is intertwined with your intuition, but you can't use any preconceived notions or biases to have any kind of to form any kind of reading. And this is where witchcraft may come into play, when they have preconceived notions or biases. If it's a reading about a particular person, it's preconceived. And it may be biased, and is meant to deceive, as this being a genuine instinct or a genuine intuitive reading. So we're using a form of deception because this is something that's preconceived. It's preconceived. Preconceived. Let's see. Let me show you real quick. Formed before having the evidence for its truth or usefulness. The same set of facts can be tailored to fit any preconceived belief, predetermined, prejudged, prejudiced, biased. So here you have it. is a preconceived, pre-thought out, prejudged, predetermined. You know, maybe he had preconceived ideas about me. We all started with preconceived notions of what we want from life, so it's already thought out, and then you give a reading of something that you already had conceived. You already conceived this idea. So now let me give you a reading, and now that reading is already preconceived. Like I'm telling you, that's where witchcraft would come into play at, because you thinking that this is all coming into realization as you give the reading, but it's something that's preconceived, and now because of that, it's a form of deception. And again, when we get to witchcraft, you're going to find out that witchcraft is just a form of deception. And not only that, but also when dealing with witchcraft, you're dealing with goddess, and when you're dealing with God itself, church, you're dealing with God. When you're dealing with Christianity, you're dealing with a male, or a male dominant God. And when you're dealing with witchcraft, you're dealing with a female dominated goddess. Like witchcraft is all surrounding females, women. So yeah, it's those are some of the differences, because the same way you pray in Christianity or any other religion, Islam, you would also have prayers, or what they call chants and incantations, and witchcraft. But it's all to a goddess, or either to nature, which would still be a feminine thing. So these are the differences in witchcraft and in other religions. It's male and female. Female is dealing with witchcraft, and the church is dealing with male. That's like I said, I'm not gonna lie. And it's not that witchcraft is an evil thing. It can be used for good, and it can be used for bad. The same thing with the church. It can be used for good, and it can be used for bad. It can be used to heal, or it can be used to harm. The same thing with witchcraft. It can be used to heal, or it can be used to harm. So for people that have a biased the form of attributing certain things to this and that, y'all, I can't. It's why you have to be yourself, because other than that, you'll be controlled by something. And being that we're either controlled by what we are raised underneath, it becomes a part of our heritage. Our heritage. When we grow up in houses that they went to church, and they brought us, that we believe that that's our heritage. Then some people break away from that because they may have some sort of resentment to how they was raised in those churches, so they would seek something else outside of that. When it comes to Christianity, they may go seek Islam. If they don't choose Islam, they may choose something completely different. But it's all about not having any solid foundation, so we tend to latch on to things that we was raised off of as part of our heritage, and that's just what it is. Like, you got people, matter of fact, we was watching an interview with Crazy Bone and Busy Bone. I don't have to bring any rappers in it, but Crazy Bone said that he was a Jehovah's Witness, and Busy Bone stated something like he couldn't do something because he was a Jehovah's Witness, but busy he was kind of, I mean, he gave him, he ridiculed him like, son, how could you be that, but how could you be against that, but you're not completely that, because you made this music at a certain time, you smoked this weed and you drunk this alcohol at a certain time, and you still call yourself a Jehovah's Witness. Then they have some people that actually understand, son, if you that, you have to be that. You can't say that you're this, but you're really not that. Say that you was raised in that, but you're not that. But you can, that's just some of us. That's just how we see things. How are you going to say that you're this, but you're doing the complete opposite of what that is? Don't say you're anything. You won't be a hypocrite. Be yourself. Therefore, you can't be a hypocrite. Did you get it? Did you not get that? Be yourself, and you can't be a hypocrite. If you be that, but be something else, you're a hypocrite. If you want to be this, but you're not that at all, you're a hypocrite. So it's not about what you got to understand. When Christ was ripping the Pharisees, if the Pharisees came out and said, son, we're wicked people, we don't follow the law, they couldn't have been called hypocrites. But they actually tried to follow the law, but they was actually doing the opposite. So this is what gets people labeled as hypocrites. When you're saying that you're something, but then you find the thing that you're supposed to be, you gotta understand, nobody's perfect. That's the reason why you should just be yourself, because nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's going to be in a perfect thing. Nobody's going to be in a perfect thing. Well, you got the Buddhists, and stuff like that, and but they're actually, set apart. They're in their own, like monks. Monks. They go through vigorous training and isolation and being amongst each other, and that's what actually sets them apart, because they dedicate themselves to that discipline, where other people, all it takes is for you to just join something and you're that. You're that. And that's with anything, whether it's a gang, a religion, a fraternity, a cult, it doesn't matter. You join it, you that. But you may not have any strong, backing in it. You may not have no strong backing in it. So you may do things as contrary to it, which would get you deemed or labeled as not being that, which would label you as being hypocritical. That's just something that I wanted to touch on, because we're going to get into that. So that's what tarot is. To develop your intuition in tarot reading, it is important to trust your instincts and let go of any preconceived notions or biases. You must be open to receiving messages from the cards, not from source, not from the universe, not from anywhere, but you receiving messages from the cards, and be willing to interpret them. And be willing to interpret them in a way that resonates. You have to interpret the card in a way that resonates. If you see the hangman upside down, you have to interpret it in a way that resonates. Being that the hangman is upside down, this normally symbolizes a transformation, and you may be coming into some sort of transformation. There may be job trend. You may have a change in your job. You may have a change in this. You don't see the hangman and say, "Oh, these people, they still watching you, and they're they're going to get theirs." You don't. That's not. That's a preconceived notion. Because you're given a generalized reading with the story behind it that you want that the people want to hear, and this is not how you give readings. That is those are deceptive practices. If you have a card and the card speaks to you as, oh, this is the death, this is the end of something, this is the end of a cycle. Maybe it's in your relationship, maybe it's with your a habit that you have. Maybe you're about to give up a habit. I don't know, but you can't say a generalized. This is the end of. This is it for them. These people are going down for what they've been doing to you. These kids, you understand? It's that's not how you give readings. You give readings, from letting the cards, to receiving the message from the cards. It's stated right here. You must be open to receiving messages from the cards, and willing and be willing to interpret them in a way that resonates. Practicing regularly and being patient with yourself as you develop your skill is also essential. It's not just something that you should do. No, it's essential. Being patient with yourself and you develop your skills. As you develop your skills, it's very important. You're developing a skill to interpret cards, not to interpret, things from, the spirit, unless it's your spirit. You want your good spirit to override any kind of negative spirit. When especially when you're giving readings. So, by trusting your instincts and being open to receiving messages from the cards, you can provide a personalized and insightful reading for yourself and others. You see? You receiving the messages from the cards, you can provide a personalized and insightful reading for yourself and others. The insightful meaning that, I should stop this today. Or nothing's look like it's on the horizon because this card is right there. It doesn't seem like it's the sun card. The sun card is saying that there may be light at the end of the tunnel for you. This is what the sun means. Sun might mean hope, so there may be some hope. This is what I'm getting from this card. You're reading the cards. You're getting the messages from the cards, not letting the cards tell a story for you. You're receiving the messages from the cards. You're working as a conduit for the cards, not not the cards being a conduit for you. For what you want to say or what you want to convey to people. Nah, you're allowing the cards, to speak through you. But that's just me. That's just me. Like I said, me, I'm myself. I'm who God made me. So, and you don't say that, boastfully or arrogantly. You say that with certainty. Like, I don't have any kind of restrictions on who or what I can do, because I am who God made me. If God wanted me to be something, I would have been born that. So, when we're talking about, the Bible, I could read the Bible all day long. In fact, when I was in prison, I read the Bible, in a couple of different languages. In Spanish, I read the Bible and studied it. You read the Torah, you read the Quran, you read all these things. But you're not restricted to just that. And as far as you having to use that as your as the overall, the end all be all, no, because you're one that seeks, the truth, and this is one thing that you have to do. And as you seek the truth, that there's other sources where these sources come from. So and it's sources where those sources come from. So for a person to think that they can just have it and that's it, then they're sadly mistaken. And I don't care what it is they are. Well, I don't know. I don't care what it is they are. If you think that you have it, and you gotta still do some, researching. But if you're content where you at, stay there. But don't be hypocritical. If you content where you at, if you're into, shamanism, if you're content there, stay there. If you're a Buddhist, if you're a monk, stay there. You content there, stay there. If you're a Christian, if you content there, stay there. But if you have a lot of discontent in you, then maybe you might need to do a little bit more soul searching. If you gotta be something and hate something else, then you need to do some soul searching. Because at a period of time, there was a lot of people that they went on witch hunts, and they was after witches as Christians. As Christians, they went on witch hunts, and they persecuted and hung and burnt a lot of witches because they was adverse to witchcraft. They didn't have a tolerant. They was intolerant to witchcraft. When witchcraft was considered the adversary, and as you can see online, they're pinpointing and poking at witchcraft. Witchcraft, witches and warlocks. And a person asked me earlier, was we on the same path? And then she asked me, "Are you a warlock?" Like, hold on, are you a warlock? I don't even know what the hell a warlock. Excuse my language. I don't even know what the hell a warlock is. I don't. Is that like a male witch? I don't know. I don't know no incantations. I don't know no spells. I don't know I don't know none of that stuff. But I do see people online, and they go back and forth between witchcraft and Jesus. I do see that. I do see that. And what I wanted to show you was, what do I have? And we'll get into that a little bit, later. But yeah. Ethics of tarot reading. If you're thinking of becoming a tarot card reader and sharing your skill with others, there are certain ethical considerations that you should keep in mind. Here are some of the most important ones. Confidentiality. As a tarot reader, you must respect the privacy of your clients. This means that you should never share personal information with anyone else unless you have explicit permission. Objectivity. It's important to approach tarot reading with an open mind and without any preconceived notions. You should strive to be as objective as possible and avoid projecting your biases or opinions onto the readers. So you got to be objective as possible, As a tarot reader, you have a responsibility to your clients. This means you should always be honest, and provide accurate and helpful information. You should also avoid making promises or guarantees you cannot keep. So you have to be honest with them and provide accurate and helpful information. You should also avoid making promises or guarantees you cannot keep. Before you begin a tarot reading, you should always obtain the client's consent. You should explain the process to them and allow them to ask questions or raise concerns. Boundaries. It's important to establish clear boundaries with your client. This means that you should never engage in any behaviors that could be perceived as inappropriate or unprofessional. You should also avoid getting too emotionally involved in your clients' lives. By considering these ethical considerations, you can ensure that your tarot readings are conducted responsibly and respectfully. So the boundaries. I've seen on numerous occasions some readings that, people had gave, they actually cried while, reading them, and, you know, which indicates like an emotional attachment. But, like I said, some of these stories, they are, they're reading, people's situations, especially in certain programs. You can't be the only person that's being gang stalked and harassed. So it's probably a few people. But me, I normally, hear the same stories over and over and over again. You know, and like I said, for me, it's entertainment. Those are hot fries. %100 recycled ocean-bound plastic. That's plastic rescued from coastal environments, preventing it from polluting the ocean. This water bottle saved 5 plastic bottles from ending up in the ocean. It's in water. I'm not sure if you have a 100% recycled ocean-bound plastic. That's good. And I drink my water. Has to be, room temperature. Why is it like that? I don't know. I have no idea. I don't like cold water at all. I do not like cold water. So what is tarot? A summary. Now that you better understand what tarot is, you can appreciate the depth and complexity of this powerful practice. Tarot is a tool for self-reflection and spiritual growth, and it can be used in various ways to gain insight and guidance, whether seeking answers to specific questions or simply looking to deepen your connection to your intuition. Tarot can be a powerful tool for transformation. Remember that tarot is not a magic solution to all life's problems. It is a tool that can help you gain insight and clarity into your own life. It is up to you to interpret the cards and apply their messages to your life in a meaningful way. Our tarot diploma course, they got courses for them. You can get a diploma in tarot just by studying it. You can study these courses. You can study. So there you have it. You can study these things. These people are probably had to go through a certain, a diploma, had to get a certain diploma in order for them to be deemed as a worthy tarot reader. Then they have to be able to speak. They have to be able to, have a certain ability to speak. Like everybody can't speak like me. I think, faster than I talk. And I've heard one person that I've ever seen relay that same sentiment to others. Just one person that I seen say that they think faster than they talk. You know, so but they don't have a problem with speaking. You know, and I write better than I could speak. So I write as fast as I think, but I think faster than I talk. So by the time I'm done talking, I got 4 or 5 thoughts that came out at the same time, and you're trying to focus on that one thought, and that one been left. You got new thoughts, and it's just funny for me that it's like that. But like I said, thoughts just come so fast, and it doesn't matter how many people steal your thoughts. They do. They can steal your ideas. They steal your ideas before you even say anything about them. Somebody else doing, took that idea, and you don't really care, because I got an infinite amount of ideas, to the point where now they want me to write my dreams down. I ain't write my dreams down. Why? So y'all can steal them too? Y'all want me to steal what people tell me in my dreams? Because you actually converse in your dreams. You actually get information and knowledge and wisdom and all sorts of stuff in your dreams. Then you'll remember them when you wake up, but probably around about 10 minutes after you get into doing other stuff, it's gone. So people might really want that insight that you have, that you get in your dreams. Like, they might want to have it. Like right now, there's people going around saying stuff about, like, Kendrick Lamar's actually a plant. And when they say it, they might say something for about might say something for about 30 seconds. But as adamant as you've been about it, not only that, they might say it for about 2 seconds, but they go viral about it. Like, dozens of people come flock to it. But when you say it, nobody even pays attention to it. Nobody pays attention to what you got. Now you're really sincere about sharing that information, like to warn people, to actually help people to break away from a systematic, a slavery. It's a slave system that they just keep looping you and stringing you along, but you just going along with it. But your whole intentions is to break them away from that. And allow them to establish their own ideas and their own thoughts, as opposed to having their thoughts and ideas coached to them by a particular source. Like, it's a source, the music industry, the TV, the whatever the source is, but you're trying to break them away from that by giving them this information from a sincere standpoint. So when somebody else says it, it doesn't come off sincerely, and then they might receive it, and it's a lot of banter and talk about it, but there's actually no change. No change that comes about from just the discussion. But when you have somebody like me that can actually give it to you in a better form, a more a genuine form, you'll get the genuine feel of it. You won't get it from hating aspect. You're like, son, this is something that they've always been doing. Didn't y'all see they cloned Tyrone? When you see that they own the music, they own the music, they own the people. Don't you know they own the money? If the people want the money, they own the people. So these are things that you see. I see, that I see, that I think faster than I talk, and I write faster than I write better than I could speak. And not only that, but I dream a lot better than I can even think. I dream better. My dreaming is better than my thoughts. So my thoughts, the stuff that you get from your dreams, is more valuable than the thoughts that you actually have in reality. So that's a crazy way to, look at things. That's a crazy way to look at things. Your dreams, your dreams are more valuable than your thoughts, and your thoughts are more valuable than your speak, and your writing is just as valuable as your thoughts. You know, so y'all don't want me to write nothing down or type anything out. Nah, y'all don't. But we talking about the Tarot Diploma course and Advanced Tarot Diploma course are excellent accredited courses designed to help you become the most proficient tarot reader possible, whether it's for yourself or others. Enroll in these courses for $29 each, saving you £98, and begin your tarot journey today. So these, tarot readers could take a course in tarot. They have to study this stuff. You have this because you got to understand where they all just come from. It's just a plethora of readers. And y'all don't see the similarities in this reader and that reader and that reader and this reader, and how similar they are and how similar their readings are. Y'all can't see that. I can. I do. And I see the same thing with, but you gotta understand, some of them are genuine. Some of them are genuine readers. Then some of them are, gossip girls and gossip guys, and that like to keep drama going, that loves to hear about drama. And then you have some that are real good readers that give you real good, insight, and like I said, insight and guidance. But for me, I don't need. I stay with God. I stay with God. Let God guide me. But for me, like I said, it's all entertainment. God ain't looking at me like, you listening, you watching that stuff. No, God is like, son, pay attention. That they got information about you. They got information about you. There's something going on in this world, pertaining you. And these people are connected to those people, and they're giving information. So, pay attention. This is what God tells me. Even those people, pay attention. God shows me certain things, and God is that intuition, that real intuition inside of you that's nudging you. God is that nudge inside of you that tells you certain things. And it gives you that clarity and that forewarning and that guidance. That's what God is. But if they, like I said, if they are giving you information and it's preconceived and already thought out, and just giving you something that's already scripted, then that's deception, which is witchcraft. Witchcraft and magic is a form of deception. It's not a real. You don't have. And that's the thing. The power is actually in the belief. If you believe that witchcraft is real, then witchcraft can affect you. You be like, man, you ain't got that stuff ain't got no power, and it's not gonna affect you. And if people say that it's witchcraft that's affecting you and doing this and that and the third to you, then that's them that want to believe that about you. But like I said, my God is righteous. It's the God of righteousness. So if they believe that they're with the God of righteousness, then they got the same God. The righteous God. That's just the way that it goes. I'm not sure what they believe, how you draw the line of what righteousness is. There's only one form of righteousness. Righteousness is righteousness. There's only one form of righteousness. Is going around smacking somebody just because you feel like it. Is that righteous? Nah, that's wicked. My God wouldn't do that. God wouldn't authorize that. That's not righteous. If your God allows that, then that's not a righteous God. Go treat them people bad. Treat them bad for what? No, they beneath you. Okay, that's not a righteous God. Go try to offer those people assistance. Why? Because you got more than they got. And you don't need all that stuff you got. And even if you did, I'll provide for you. Some way down the line, they lost themselves. Go show them that, there's goodness in the world. Go. Okay. That's a righteous God. Not one that tells you to go and assault and harass people. That's not a righteous God. So that's what I'm trying to understand. You got the same God as I got. You got the God that came, that knew you when you was in the womb. We know that story. But what about the God that you knew before you knew any other God? That was always a righteous God. But what about that? Y'all don't have that same kind of, connection. You never knew that God before you knew any kind of religion. Before I knew any kind of religion, I had a awareness of a righteous God, of something that gave you righteous insight. Take your mother's cigarettes, throw them away. Why? You don't want your mother to perish off of those. Again, God's plan is for you to prosper, not perish. And people think prosper is prosper in money. No, it might be in health. It might be in peace. These are things that you can prosper in. People want money, but they don't know that that money may cause a world of trouble for them. So why would you want to prosper me in money and then everybody start attacking me for money? No, I'm going to prosper you in peace. You got peace. An abundance of peace. Abundance of peace. I have anyway. Abundance of peace. I'm like I said, man, I never, ever, 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 ever never, ever, ever, ever disgruntled. You might look it. And if I'm ever enraged, it's a righteous rage. It's a righteous rage. When I was out in Philadelphia, and I was out there what they call standing on business, by myself, and I got a footage of it, of you actually, representing God how you supposed to actually represent God. I came to this one dude peacefully, because he was laying on the floor in front of a church, and I was cleaning up in that area. So I told him, like, yo, come on, bro, get up. What you want me to get you some coffee? You want to get up? And he told me he was going to do something to me. And I let him know, like, son, can't nobody do nothing to me. Do you want some coffee? He asked me, was I playing? He said he can't get up. I can't get up. But, it was the drugs that he was on that passed him out like that. But, and again, like I told you, it was people that said that they're with this, but was actually not with that was actually giving them the drugs out there. It was the people, the police, that was supposed to be citizens on patrol that was doing nothing about that area out there. It took somebody to come from out of his own habitat on his own. With the ability that God gave him, just to address certain things, to come out there in the name of God, in the name of a righteous God. Like, yo, we gotta stop. I couldn't do nothing about, the crack epidemic or the dope epidemic, but this is an epidemic out here. Let me go out here and get my hands dirty, man, and try to do something about this situation. Just with the spirit that God gave you, you went out there, and then you got God all over your shirt. The glory of God is here, and God is this and God is that, and somebody came and stepped to me. They asked me like, "Yo, what's going on, dog?" And I was like, So he was like, "Man, it's Kensington." Man, he was like, "Man, it's Kensington." He actually so what got me like, man. So what, man? It's Kensington. Do you know what kind of reaction that created? What kind of reaction that created just by saying, God, so what? You ain't here, you working for who? So, oh man, I got footage, and the footage is so, and not on my behalf, but on the people's behalf. The footage is so embarrassing, on the world's behalf, of how this one guy, has the courage to step to a whole city. I want to say a state because the state allowed it. This one guy by himself, no church with him. The church was instrumental in destruction. Stepped to them by his own self. On behalf of God, by himself. That is not. Oh, like I said, some of the things I do baffle me. Some of the things I do baffle me. People think that just because you're a peacemaker, you're just a pushover, and that is definitely not the case. But yeah, we're kind of getting off. Tarot is used for divination, spiritual guidance, and personal growth. People use tarot to gain insight into their own lives, to make decisions, and to gain a deeper understanding of themselves and the world around them. What is tarot and spirituality? In spirituality, tarot is often used for personal growth and self-discovery. It is believed, like I said, the power is in the belief. The power is in the belief. In anything that you do, the power is in the belief. The power is actually in the belief. If you're into Christianity, the power is in the belief. Is it true? The power is in the belief. If a person don't believe your religion is the truth, that's just what it is. That's their religion doesn't have any kind of power over a person that don't have any belief in your religion. That's just how it goes. But if they do believe that, then the power is in the belief. Are tarot cards supernatural? Tarot cards are not considered to be supernatural. Okay? Tarot cards are not considered to be supernatural. Instead, they are seen as a tool that can tap into one's intuition and inner wisdom. Their intuition and their inner wisdom. A card may tap into what you feel. Like, I feel like going to work today. I feel like not going to work today. Something might, I don't feel like going. Something's going to happen. Then you might bring out the hangman in reverse. I knew I shouldn't have went to work today. I knew I'm calling out. Hello? I'm not going to work today. Yeah, sick. Stomach ache. There we go. That hangman in reverse. Yeah, I felt something bad coming. It might even happen, but it's a way for you to tap into your inner wisdom and your intuition. Your intuition could have been telling you might have, or you might have been driving to work and got a flat tire and swerved. That's just something that you might have just felt. And a card may say, Oh, no, nothing's gonna happen. You know, you might get a raise today. You know, it's up to the person's intuition of how they tap into these cards. So tarot cards are not considered to be supernatural. The supernatural ability is your ability to interact with your intuition and your inner wisdom. These things are what you would call supernatural. It's not natural, it's actually supernatural because it's something outside of what your senses is telling you, that's giving you, like your six senses. It's another sense that's giving you this foreknowledge, you know. So that can be what's considered supernatural, because these are things that are God given. Intuition, you know, inner wisdom, you know, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. These are things that are God given, you know. So that's what supernatural is, you know. But tarot cards, no, they're not. They have no power. They're just depictions of cards, and how they come out is how you read them, how your intuition reads them. Who invented tarot cards? The origins of tarot are unclear, but it is believed to have originated in Italy during the 15th century. The first known tarot deck was created in Milan in the early 15th century, and the cards were used for playing games before they was used for guidance purposes. So there you have, you know, tarot. Is it witchcraft? No. It's witchcraft because it's a study that you normally see with females. All these hands are reflecting with a female. You know, all these hands are dealing with a female. And when you go online, there's females online that do mostly tarot readers. There's also guys that can read tarot. You know, it's also guys, you know, that reads tarot, you know, but it's mainly around females, and females was associated with what you would call witchcraft. So, you know, there you kind of have it right there, you know. Uh, you know, and if you look at this story, Light Tarot is a female, you know. This came out in November 21st, 2023. Light Tarot, it's a female. So these are it's around a female, you know. These are females are typically the ones that do tarot readings. You know, they would have gypsies that normally gave you tarot readings and crystal ball readings and gave you horoscope. But then you have, you know, when you look at these spells and witchcraft, let's see what witchcraft is, you know. Alright, witchcraft in general refers to the practice of magic or supernatural powers, often associated with rituals, and can encompass both healing and harming, as well as divination. You know, divination. Here are more detailed looks at the concept of witchcraft. General definition is witchcraft is the use of alleged supernatural powers or magic by a person called a witch. You know, a witch. So here we have witch, and witch is pertaining to the feminine aspect of a magician. So this is not magic craft, it's not magic, it's witchcraft. So witchcraft is the use of alleged superpowers of magic by a person called witchcraft. Traditionally, witchcraft meant the use of magic or supernatural powers to inflict harm or misfortune on others, and this remains a common understanding. So, this is a common understanding of what witchcraft actually is. You know, witchcraft is a common um, understanding that's um, it's meant to inflict harm or misfortune, which we all believe that. You know, everybody understand that in common. So this is where we have common sense. It's a common understanding. Oh, witchcraft is supernatural power. This is what gives this actual power. The belief. Belief is the power. Is a superpower. Belief is a superpower. Belief is faith. Belief is faith. Faith and belief is the same exact thing. You know, belief. If you have strong belief, you have strong faith. You know, so that's what gives this the actual power. All it takes is a little bit of faith. You know what I mean? In order for this to actually have any kind of power. Just a little bit of belief in it. Do you believe in witchcraft? Man, witchcraft is real, man. Oh, I'm telling you, you know. But some people can have a string of misfortunate events due to their fear of them actually stumbling into misfortunate events from witchcraft. You know, if people start putting the roots and stuff on you, like where they're telling you that something is going to happen to you, people's watching you, people spying, this is the reason why that can actually happen, because it's a form of witchcraft, trying to make you believe something that is not there that's actually there. And even though it may be there, by you giving reverence to it and acknowledging it, now it becomes more prevalent. They may already have it set up for you to fall into it, but you're not paying it no attention, because if you don't pay it no attention, then it don't have no power. But now that there's people just constantly telling you, yeah, your family, yeah, your friends, and yeah, this is gonna happen and this is gonna happen. Now you start to look for it, and then it actually start presenting itself to you, which becomes again the belief. You start to believe that those things are going to happen, so they tend to start happening. So that is one of the forms of witchcraft, and how witchcraft can affect a person, because if a person has belief in it, then it has some sort of supernatural powers. And again, belief and intuition is a superpower. You know what I mean? Belief is a power. To have strong belief is a power. Belief is a power. Let's see if we can find a definition on that. Belief is a superpower. It can empower individuals, allowing them to gain strength, unlock abilities, and overcome obstacles. Self-belief is a key factor in personal development and success. Self-belief is your superpower. So belief you know, is a form of a superpower. So, you know. Well, here they're just going to give you, just the 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 belief in supernatural. We want to see if belief is supernatural, which it is, because this is something outside of your senses, your natural senses. You don't have to believe anything unless it's actually up to you, which is, you might touch something and don't believe that it's wet, or might touch something and don't believe that it'll shock you, but even if you get shocked, you still don't believe that it shocks you. So this is a belief is actually, is supernatural, So it's outside of the nature of things. So you don't have to believe that the sky is blue if you don't want to. You don't have to believe that the earth is round. This is the reason why we got two different people every day arguing whether the earth is flat or the earth is round. The earth is because of the belief. So the belief is not natural. It's not natural to believe. If it was natural to believe, there wouldn't be any differences in religion or any kind of differences in people. White, black, green, purple, whatever. You would not have any kind of differences. But because belief is supernatural, you are able to attribute belief the way that you want to and weld it how you want to. But yeah, that's just a little something that I wanted to. So today, witchcraft can also encompass practices for healing, divination, or engaging in spiritual or religious traditions, like Wicca. I've met a Wiccan, and they regular people. Wicca is a modern pagan religion that follows a nature-based spirituality, and it follows who are called Wiccans, typically identify as witches. Key aspects of witchcraft. In fact, yeah, that girl that they was into Wiccan. I remember that they had this one friend that had a witchcraft store in that city, because I met them. I met the girl, and they was speaking to them, and I spoke to them. They was like, no, don't speak to them. But they was their friend, but they didn't want me to speak to them. I don't know. But witchcraft often involves the use of magic and rituals, which can include spells and incantations. Spells and incantations. So we can get a clear definition of what an incantation is. Abracadabra. It's a chant, invocation, conjuration, a recitation, intonation. Is a magic formula intended to trigger a magical effect on a person or objects. It can be spoken, sung, or chanted, and is often used during ceremony, rituals, or prayers. See? It's the same exact thing as a prayer, and that's what I wanted to get at. That these rituals and incantations is the same thing as a prayer. It's the same thing as a prayer, incantation, or a magic formula intended to trigger a magical effect on a person or objects. It can be spoken, sung, or chanted, and is often used during ceremonial rituals or prayers. The chanting or uttering of words with magical power is also referred to as an incantation. So when we pray, we send out words to trigger an effect on a person. The person speaking, God bless, my mother, my father, my sister, my brother. God bless, this is what we tend to have an effect on a particular person when we pray, you know. When you trigger a magical effect on a person or object, God's will be done on earth as it is on heaven, which is an effect that we don't contribute, we don't control, but it's the control of God having an effect on earth as it is on heaven, and give us today our daily bread. So we give us, is intended to give us something, to trigger something for us, to give us something, So it's the chanting or uttering of words with magical powers. It also refers to as an incantation. So this is the definition of incantation. Spiritual. Nope. Yeah, and I know a lot of people is upset because, I'm not just a one-way person. I'm not one-sided. And I'm definitely not what they call a double-minded person. I'm open-minded. I'm open to receive new information every single day. I'm open to guidance every single day. I'm not closed off to anything. Double-mindedness is hypocritical. That's kind of like hypocritical. Being this way but being that way. Saying you're in a religion about love but you hate people because of this or because of that. It's double-mindedness. Double-mindedness is if Christ says love your neighbor as you love yourself, but you go and hate homosexuals, or you go and hate somebody because they practice the tarot. That's double-mindedness. So we try to stay clear of double-mindedness, and double-mindedness is a form of hypocritical thinking. So we just try to be as open-minded as possible, and that's how we're open to receive from God. For you to believe that God closed off everybody and just bottled everything inside of, a Bible written by the Romans, or something that you got from Rome, then I'm not sure, what kind of connection you do have to God. Because these people was cruel and unusual, and today we still got cruel and unusual practices by the people that follow them. You know what I mean? So I'm pretty much sure the God of righteousness ain't really with them people, or they not really with the God of righteousness. But there is a real live God, and I don't think that I know for a fact they are not with them. Like I said, if they was with them, I'd be with them, and that's with anybody. If they was with them, I'd be with them. But we'll talk. Here's sin in the Bible. Here's sin in the Bible. So for people who that's biblical, so they can understand that witchcraft is a sin. in the Bible. If you're a Christian, okay. Spiritual or religious practices. Some forms of witchcraft, like Wicca, are rooted in spiritual and religious practice, while others may be more focused on the practice of magic itself. Healing and harm. Witchcraft can be used for both healing and causing harm, depending on the context and belief of the practitioner. Divination. Many practitioners of witchcraft engage in divination, which is the practice of seeking knowledge of the future or hidden things. So they use a practice of seeking knowledge of the future or hidden things. So, tarot is not basically rooted in divination, but yeah, it can, be a form of seeing future events or hidden things, like was a stumble. It's going to be a traffic. Today it's going to be bad traffic. I'm not going. It's or however they might want to attribute something hidden, by using divination. But for you to seek out the hidden things, these are things that are biblical. So you can't kind of attribute, seeking out the hidden things, or seeking out things that are hidden, Nature and the element. Matter of fact, the hidden things belong to God. So this is like you spying on God, This is probably the reason why a lot of people don't want to get into the earth is round and earth is flat, because you might find out some hidden things, if you was to find out what the earth actually is, like I told you already, it's a pit. We're on a platform. Different types of witchcraft. Wicca, a modern pagan religion that emphasizes nature-based spirituality and the use of magic. Green witchcraft, a type of witchcraft that focuses on nature, herbalism, and gardening. So they got witchcraft that focuses on nature, herbalism, and gardening. Then you have ceremonial magic, a type of magic that involves elaborate rituals, often drawing on ancient traditions and symbolism. There we have witchcraft in the Wikipedia. Oh, but nah, we want to give you this, the AI overview. What is the sin of witchcraft in the Bible? In the Bible, the sin of witchcraft is equated with rebellion and stubbornness, representing a rejection of God's word and seeking of power and knowledge outside of Him. Seeking of power and knowledge outside of Him. So this is where witchcraft is equated with rebellion and stubbornness, representing a rejection of God's word and seeking of power and knowledge outside of Him, which became the fall of man with Eve in the garden. So Eve was the one that sought power and knowledge outside of God, because she wanted to eat the apple and become like God without receiving the knowledge directly from God. So this is where you could say that witchcraft actually started with man, with the fall of mankind, rebellion and stubbornness. They didn't want to take heed to the word of God, and rejected God's word. So this is it's a biblical thing. Here's a more detailed breakdown. The Bible, specifically in 1 Samuel 15, chapter 23, states, "For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is iniquity as idolatry." So idolatry is associated with stubbornness. So people are stubborn in their idol worship. Idol worship, because when you had the Hebrews, when soon as Moses turned his back, they started to worship idols again. After they was delivered, they went back to worshiping idols. You know, so there you have, that's a form of stubbornness. You know, this verse highlights that rejecting God's authority and seeking to do things your own way is as serious as engaging in witchcraft or idolatry. Rejection of God's word. Witchcraft is seen as a form of rebellion because it involves seeking knowledge or power from sources other than God, thereby rejecting his authority and guidance. Idolatry is seeking power. The Bible condemns witchcraft because it is seen as a form of idolatry, where individuals seek power and knowledge from sources other than God, thus putting their trust in things rather than in him. King Saul, example in the Bible, King Saul. King Saul's disobedience to God and his seeking guidance from a witch at Endor are examples of the sin of witchcraft and rebellion. Deuteronomy chapter 18 verse 10 through 12. This passage prevents anyone from engaging in divination, sorcery, interpreting omens, or engaging in witchcraft, stating that anyone who does these things is detestable to the Lord. Galatians chapter 5 verse 19 through 20. This verse lists witchcraft, pharmakia, among the works of the flesh alongside other sins like idolatry, sexual immorality, and hatred. So hatred is another one. So, you know, sexual immorality and idolatry, you know, is amongst witchcraft, you know. Yep. So the Bible warns that those who engage in witchcraft will face God's judgment. So that's the Bible you know, interpretation of what witchcraft is, you know, equated to rebellion and stubbornness. So with that we have we have witchcraft and we have tarot, and how tarot readers are using, you know, God in a sense of, you know, or source that they're getting their intuition from. Maybe they're able to give, you know, glory to God for their intuition as they read the cards. I've seen that on occasions, you know. But is it witchcraft? Witchcraft is a practice all in itself, which is a means of healing or either harming, depending on the one that's casting the spells, and the one that actually believes in that form of supernatural, you know, superpower. But you know, that, you know, witchcraft doesn't have any bearings on me. You know, when I go through things, it's due to mankind, you know, trying to deter or stop my growth, men and women, you know. And it is not like it's a magical thing, because I simply don't believe in that. You know, I believe in the oneness of God, which is connected to the divine, and that's just, you know, that's just what it is. You know, God is the source of life, and that life doesn't just stop with humanity. It you know, carries to all living things. You know, and it's not that, you know, the influence over events that man has. These are superimposed things on people. You know, when God set things in motion, these things they they're either stopped by man, or they're intervened by mankind. So that's just something that I had to touch on, to give my opinion about. Not saying that my opinion is right or my opinion is wrong, but I do have an opinion, and it was sought. So as one that don't mind sharing, I chose to share. You know, and hopefully it's taken. You know, um, respectfully. Because you don't mean any kind of disrespect in your delivery. You know, but so that's tarot readers. A lot of tarot readers, they are on here. They may stumble across this and be like, "Hey, blasphemy." No, it's not. It's just what it is. There's real tarot readers. There's people that read tarot readers, and they do it from um, a perspective of giving you some sort of understanding. Then there's some that it's just part of the drama circle, and keep things going. But yeah. Peace.